Imagine a king, once hailed across Europe as the most handsome man in history, tall, with a muscular build, dancing ballet for 6 hours without fatigue, hunting wild boar for hours like a warrior, with a prodigious memory that allowed him to recall the names of 3,000 nobles at court. When Louis XIV, the Sun King, entered the Grand Hall of Versailles, the light reflecting on the mirrors multiplied his figure, deifying his presence. People believed he was chosen by God. They called him the living God of France. But what no history book wants to tell you is that this great king died weighing over 140 kilos, toothless, unable to sit upright, his body oozing pus and reeking so foul that foreign envoys vomited during audiences. Half a century of brilliance ended with 3 weeks of hell, as the son of Europe was devoured piece by his own body. In today's video, you will witness the terrifying dark side of absolute power, how arrogance, medieval medicine, and hollow rituals transformed a divine emperor into a rotting corpse. And I dare say, after hearing this story, you will never look at Versailles and the French throne the same way again. Chapter 1. The Golden Age of the Sun, King Year 1661. Versailles was not yet the grand palace we know today. But from the very beginning, it became a living stage for a single actor, Louis XIV. Imagine an afternoon in May, sunlight streaming through the enormous glass windows, reflecting on hundreds of mirrors. A crowd of more than 5,000 people held their breath as they gazed down the marble staircase. And then he appeared. The 23-year-old, dressed in a gold-embroidered robe, weighing 15 kilos, descended step by step. His height of 1.75 meters, not especially tall by today's standards, was considered ideal in the 17th century. Broad shoulders, firm muscles, long flowing black hair. Every stride he took made the hardwood floor tremble, as though even Versailles itself had to obey him. His bright blue eyes, shining like shooting stars. You could silence an entire room with a single glance. Louis's voice carried clearly for 50 meters. Deep, warm, and commanding. People said that merely standing near him, you could sense a natural masculine fragrance that left both men and women spellbound. This was not just a young king. This was a movie star of the 17th century. But instead of the silver screen, he had all of Versailles as his stage. And Louis XIV was not only beautiful, he possessed rare talents. Languages. He spoke fluently 5 French, Latin, Italian, Spanish, and even German. Swordsmanship. He surpassed his Italian masters, renowned as the finest fencers in Europe. Music and art. He could dance ballet for 6 straight hours, then sit and write poetry that moved even English envoys to tears. His memory was nearly superhuman. Among more than 3,000 nobles at court, he could recall faces, call their names correctly, and even ask about the smallest details of their families. In a court where status was measured by every gesture, that memory was a weapon of absolute power, and his daily life, like an unending machine. By day, he hunted in the forests for 8 hours straight, bringing down wild boars with sheer strength. By night, he danced until 3 in the morning. Yet the next morning, during the lever ceremony, the waking ritual, he still appeared radiant. This was the time when Europe looked upon Louis XIV and believed, yes, this was a king sent by God. Versailles, then, was not only a palace, but a vast theatre, where every ritual, from putting on silk clothes in the morning to extinguishing candles at night, was choreographed to glorify his image as a godlike being. Everything, from the nod of his head, the flick of his eyes, to the way he placed his step on the wooden floor, was a performance of power, Nobles jostled and fought for the chance to tie the king's shoelaces, or to hold up the mirror for him to view his face. They called it the highest honor. This was the era when the sun did not only rise in the east, it rose right at Versailles, in the form of a man. But, even when the radiance was at its brightest, the first cracks in this divine body had already begun, and no one suspected that the smallest habits, seemingly harmless, would become the roots of a horrifying medical tragedy. Chapter 2. The First Signs. The body betrays the sun, king behind the dazzling light of Versailles. The body of Louis XIV had already begun to speak, but everything was concealed. Imagine this, a king who ate 6 to 8 meals a day, plus 3 snacks. Banquets piled with foie gras, game meat, heavy fatty stews, pastries, red wine, luxury dishes continuously served as if his stomach were a bottomless pit, and the inevitable result, chronic constipation. According to the diary of the royal physician, Louis needed 2, sometimes 3 enemas a day just to relieve himself. Yes, even while he shone in the court banquets. Behind the scenes, doctors and servants had to prepare instruments that would make us shudder just hearing about them. But that was not all. His muscular frame hid another truth. His breath was atrocious. Servants recorded that Louis always needed to carry mint candies to mask the foul odor from his mouth, a stench that later no flowers or perfumes could ever overcome. And remember, in the 17th century, people believed water carried disease. Bathing was considered dangerous, a gateway for demons to enter. Louis XIV fully believed this. Throughout his life, he only washed his face and hands each morning. A full bath, perhaps only twice, in 7 decades. The Sun King truly believed that natural body odor was a sign of masculine strength and sacred power. But this belief sowed the seeds of tragedy. The white powder and rosy rouge on his face were not merely fashion, they were camouflage for skin riddled with pimples and scars, caused by dirt and oils that were never cleansed. While the court overflowed with lavish rituals, who would hold the basin of water, who had the right to present the mirror, inside, a weakening body was crying for help. But Versailles was a giant theatre, and in this play, every crack was transformed into myth. Daily enemas. They called it a purification ritual. Foul breath, masked with fresh flowers, replaced every 2 hours. Pimples on the face, hidden beneath powder, promoted as divine radiance. Everything was staged to maintain the illusion that Louis XIV was an invincible king, but the human body does not act. And by January of 1686, after nearly 30 years of gluttony, lack of bathing, and the abuses of medieval medicine, Louis XIV noticed something small, seemingly trivial, a strange pain when sitting down. No one suspected that this pain was the opening bell of the hellish 3 decades that remained of the Sun King's life.